guys, you've been asking for some more Corvette footage, so just gave her a little bath. She's looking good right now. Clean the wheels. Makes all the difference when washing a car. Finally, it's so nice out. I'm looking forward to going on a drive. Also installed the Stage 2 aero flap, so it's really just these pieces right here. They adhere on with 3M tape as well as a couple bolts across the back, so pretty easy to just rip off the old ones. Use a little bit of fishing line to break the adhesive, but there's the baby. Looking good. It's been a little while since I've driven this thing. I've had the Audi, I've had the R8 the last few weeks, so it's good to get this thing back on the road. Let's do a second gear, kind of pull on here. Second gear at 35 miles an hour. Roll on the throttle. Quick little John. There we go. Everyone, welcome back to the Corvette. It's been several weeks since I've shot a last video in this thing. I've had the Audi up in my apartment in San Francisco for the last probably month or so, showing it to a few different people and a couple different interested parties. Plus, I just want to drive it. So, that being said, I just hadn't had much time in the cockpit of this thing, and it's really nice to get back in here. I've missed it for a few reasons. A, because I think it really should be known as like the pickup truck of the sports car world. It held so much shit back here under the hatch. I think it's like 15 cubic feet of storage versus the R8's 3.5. You can tell it's quite a bit more, so easily could hold 2, probably even up to like 4 sets of golf clubs back there. But right now I have a big paintball bag that's massive and fits in here with ease. I want to show you guys a little bit more about the storage. Let's go ahead and pop the trunk. I go on and on about how this is such a practical car. So that is a very large gear bag. It's my tiny Trump hand for comparison. Yeah, that thing's huge. And this, again, this whole space is fairly large, but the other thing to take into consideration is that the angle of the hatch, you have all the way up into here, like the glass goes up. It's pretty kind of bulbous as well. Much more so actually on the older C6 and C7s. This one's a little bit flatter, excuse me, C6 and before it was a lot more convex. This one's a little bit flatter, but still, it still gives you some extra space on top of the glass so that when it's closed, I don't know if you can see the bag in there, there's probably 4 or 5 inches between the bag and the glass. So again, just a lot of space there. So once I take this thing out, you'll see it's truly is a pickup truck of the sports car world. Just a very practical car. You know, I was cruising up the highway, just looking at my miles per gallon, and seventh gear with the cylinder deactivation. It's easily in the mid 30s, low to mid 30s. So surprisingly, like, not very thirsty car when you're not on it. Obviously, when you're getting on it, it's gonna get pretty reliant on the petrol, but for the most part, it's a really practical car. But the main thing is when I jump between the two cars, the first thing I really notice is like how much more hardcore this car is. It definitely feels just more planted on the road. Again, it handles so flat, unlike anything I've really driven. And I'm not saying that my R8 or my M4 or my old Z06, anything like that was sloppy by any means. There's not a lot of roll, but it's just not as flat as this car with the magnetic ride tuned as it is in the Grand Sport. It's set up even different than it is in the Z06 or the Z51. They really tuned it for the chassis and the weight, which is awesome. So the car is just so flat. And again, this motor really pulls strong for the 460 horsepower that's rated at. It feels like it's definitely pushing out more than that. And when the tires are warm, it really puts the power down pretty good from second gear onward. In the mornings, it's easy. Even if it's warm out, it's easy to lose slip until the tires are warm. But as long as you roll on the throttle with some progression, then you'll be able to hook up pretty well and take off. But again, just the feel of this thing just feels so much more, again, hardcore and really handling focus. And I've got a fair amount of questions over the last few months from people saying, hey, like, you're looking to buy a Corvette, I'm thinking about buying a Corvette, but what do you think about it versus a Jaguar F-Type, for instance, or a Porsche, or a couple cars that kind of come up pretty commonly, or it's more the Z06, to be honest. And what I really say is, like, honestly, at the end of the day, all these cars perform so well, from anything in the last couple of years with 400 plus horsepower is going to feel really, really freaking fast. You don't really need much more than that. If you have not owned a car that has had 400 plus horsepower before, or 500 horsepower, I would not recommend jumping up to this power level from, let's say, a 200 horsepower Civic or something of that nature, just because it's such a different animal, and if you don't know what you're doing, definitely leave the traction control on, but really you're not going to have as much fun unless you've kind of built your way up to it. And for instance, in my past, I started off with like a 350Z, so that was around 280 horsepower from the year I owned. Then I bought a 370Z, had that thing modified a bit, so I was pushing around probably like 350, 360 crank with the different bolt-ons I had. And then I jumped up to the Z06, which was probably, sorry about that. With the mods I had on, it was right around 500 wheel horse, so probably 550-ish, 560 crank. So that was a huge jump, and it was an incredible car to drive. And just so kind of manic and wild. It was really, it took some discipline to get used to and make sure I didn't kill myself while owning it. But I would recommend people build up to it to get to that sort of power level. But again, back to the main point, what is it like to drive? Really, at the end of the day, you should choose the car that really speaks to you the most. To me, that's around practicality and what sort of functions do you need? Do you need back seats? Do you need actual storage? Is it your only car? Do you care about ride comfort? But honestly, above all of that, it's like what really speaks to you. So in that sense, I mean design-wise. Like when you walk up to the car, is it going to make you smile? That for me is like the main indicator for purchasing a car, whether it's a crossover or SUV or a truck or a sports car. What makes you feel, like, fuck, this thing looks awesome. Like I'm really excited about this. I'm happy that I own this car, and it just makes me smile every time I walk up to it. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be something slow like a Volkswagen Bug, but as long as you walk up to it and you really appreciate the car for the design and what it is, that at the end of the day is what trumps everything else in my opinion. And again, everything in the last few years that is a sports car is going to handle well, it's going to drive well. Obviously there's character differences between them all, but I would say that would be the main thing I recommend people to really do, because that at the end of the day you're not going to have buyer's remorse for buying the car that that really speaks to you, versus if you might have the fastest car, but who gives a shit if it's some piece of shit or it's ugly? Like no one really cares about that. At the end of the day, it's what really speaks to you, and everyone's different. That's what's great. Like some people want a 911, some people prefer a more kind of curvaceous, low-key car. Some people want something a little bit more angular, hardcore, like the new C7 Corvettes are really a little bit more in your face, versus let's say the R8. It's kind of similar to the 911 where it's more smooth, clean lines. A lot more subtle than, let's say, a Gyro or a Huracan or one of the more modern kind of exotics that are more loud, especially depending on the color what you get. But so those are kind of my recommendations. But yeah, as for driving experience, I'd say the next thing that you to really think about is, do you want front wheel drive? Do you want all wheel drive? Do you want rear wheel drive? Depending on what you're used to, there are some great front wheel drive cars out there. GTI comes to mind. Obviously some of the Ford products, the STs, the Twins, those are great. I've driven some other cars that just like, after a while, like Mazda Speed 3s, Cobalt SSs, they have so much torque steer. They have 200, 300 horsepower, somewhere in that range, and it's like, it's just too much for a front wheel drive car in my opinion. That's why I'm not a big fan of the GTI at the end of the day. It's a great all-around car. I think it could be possibly one of the best cars ever made in terms of all-around functionality. It holds 5 people more comfortably than most large sedans. Even like a 7 Series BMW, it just has so much legroom and headroom for the size of it. It's amazing. So it's like you get the small package, you get good interior space, you get great gas mileage, you get great performance, all-around fun car, and it's so practical. So it's a great car. For me, it's not the right car, but in terms of just generally what I recommend to people, it's like you should look at a GTI. I know a couple of my buddies own them. My brother owns one. Great cars. Lost my train of thought there, but yeah, it's like, do you want front wheel? If you want more power, obviously you're probably going to want all wheel or rear wheel drive, but the dynamics of how they handle is so much different. I like to have something that's a little bit more tail happy, a little bit more playful, where coming around a turn I can slide it out a little bit if I want. I'm not an expert drifter by any means, but every once in a while, if I'm on a road that's wide enough and it's safe to kind of slide around a little bit, I'm going to do it. I'm going to have a good time. I can't afford to roast tires, unfortunately, but for little chirps here and there, it's definitely fun. All-wheel drive, you're not going to get that. Some cars are more rear biased, like the Audi, and certain cars you can adjust it to be more rear biased. I know, like in the STIs, you can do that. And some cars just automatically will do that, or if they lose traction in the front, it'll automatically send traction and torque up to the front wheels to kind of help you out. So it really depends on the kind of that sort of dynamic, and I think that's the most drastic between the cars versus performance. They could have very similar horsepower, but if it's all-wheel versus rear-wheel, you're definitely gonna have a different driving dynamic all around. So figure out what you like. There's no right or wrong answer, but it obviously depends on your circumstances. If you're up in the mountains somewhere, Tahoe, Utah, Colorado, etc., you're probably gonna have one of the all-wheel drive cars. Obviously, people go towards the WRX route. There's nothing wrong with that, but to me, it's really kind of finding that right nature of the car for you. So those are the big things, but at the end of the day, again, there's so many good cars out there, and they all perform so well. In a 4.4 second 0 to 60 versus a 4 second, you're not going to know the difference. And again, these things are all just hauling ass. Like you're going to be quicker than most of the people out there on the road. So just find the car that you enjoy. That's my 2 cents. Speaking of cars that I enjoy, a lot of people ask me, is this your most favorite car that you've had? Overall, I would say yes, actually. Other cars I've liked for different reasons. The R8 still is the most theatrical with that exhaust they have on it. It just is the most special motor, and it's just so fun to wind out. This motor definitely sounds great, and it's awesome and strong and fast, but it's just not quite the experience the R8 is. That being said, the overall driving dynamics of this car I still prefer over the R8. I just think it has better grip, it feels better, it feels more sure-footed. It's just a lot of fun, and again, just kind of the geometrics, or the geometry rather, and like the seating position of this car are excellent. There's so many adjustments, and the wheel can move up and down, in and out. It fits me better than the R8 does. The R8, a lot of the cabin is far away from you. It's kind of just a little bit different experience. It's kind of aesthetic-wise and just kind of psychology, but in the Corvette, everything's close to me. It's really easy to have the wheel really close to my chest, which I prefer. A lot of racers tend to have that. A quick tip is you want to be able to rest the top of your wrist on top of the wheel if you're doing performance driving, because when you're in a turn, that essentially will make sure that you're not going to be too far away from the wheel when you're going kind of lock to lock, or at least fully wrapped over in a turn. So things like that, being able to have that very easily in this car is nice. Other cars, sometimes I have to adjust the seat way far forward to be able to do that because the wheel won't come and meet me. So little things like that really go a long way in terms of getting my seating position right, and I always try to be as low as possible. But even in this Corvette, with it looks like a fairly long hood versus the R8, I can still see out very well. I'll try to get some shots of that. So when I'm talking about visibility in the Corvette, if you look out there, look at the left and right fenders. They're pretty pronounced, so when you're actually driving and you're getting close to things, you can definitely tell where the car is actually at, so it's a lot easier to place. You can see out very well, and the fender lines are great too. You can really see, let's see here, you can really see the where the wheels are at. Oh. Nice little merge here. Yeah, fourth gear, that's a fun one. Yeah, you can just see where the edges of the car are, so you can place it in turns on the apex really well, and just know where the car is at all times. But yeah, the overall ownership experience of this car has been great. I've only driven it just a little, almost 1,500 miles. The end of this drive will be a little over 1,500 miles, so the full braking will finally be done. I'll be ready to go on a track day here shortly. I'm hoping to go to Sonoma Raceway or Laguna Seca, one of the closer tracks to my house. So looking forward to that. Definitely will do some footage of track day once that does come. But until then, keep subscribing, keep commenting. Again, I really want to be interactive with you guys. That's kind of the nice part of having a smaller subscription basis. I read every comment, or subscribe to all the ones that make sense to subscribe to, or excuse me, comment and respond to. So keep the comments coming. Obviously, only subscribe if you like the content. I don't really give a shit if you don't like it. But if you do, subscribe. But I'm not making money on this. It's just for fun. So hopefully I can share my experiences with you guys. We can have some good conversations, some good dialogue. And obviously, if you're around the Bay Area, hit me up. I'd love to go on a cruise with you, and happy to let you guys drive any of my cars if you are